In the year 1600 BC, a city stood on the edge of the Mediterranean Sea. Its people had running water, painted walls, trade routes that stretched from Africa to the coast of Spain. They were one of the most advanced cultures on Earth, and then, in a single afternoon, they were gone. No invasion, no war, no slow decline written into the history books. They simply vanished. This is not the only time this has happened. Across every continent, archaeologists have found the remains of entire civilizations that were wiped out by something so sudden, so violent, that the people had no time to run, no time to write down what was coming. In some cases, no time even to finish the meal they were eating. And here's the part that scientists do not like to talk about. For most of these collapses, we still do not know what actually killed them. In the next few minutes, you are going to see 10 of the most disturbing examples ever discovered. 10 ancient civilizations that were thriving one day and erased the next. By the time we reach number 1, you will understand why some of the world's leading researchers believe the same thing could happen again. Stay with me to the end. The last one on this list is the most unsettling, because it happened in a place you have probably already heard of, but never been told the truth about. Let's begin. We start in the warm waters of the Aegean Sea. On an island called Crete, around 1600 BC, the Minoan civilization was the jewel of the ancient world. They built palaces with multiple stories. They had indoor plumbing more advanced than what most of Europe would have for the next 3,000 years. Their art showed graceful figures leaping over bulls. Their ships traveled to Egypt, to Syria, to the coast of modern-day Israel. And then, almost overnight, they were finished. About 100 kilometers north of Crete sits a small island called Santorini. Roughly 3,600 years ago, the volcano underneath that island erupted. But this was not a normal eruption. Geologists now believe it was one of the largest volcanic events in human history. It's possibly 4 times more powerful than Krakatoa. The eruption sent ash across the Mediterranean. It triggered a tsunami estimated at over 30 meters high, taller than a 10-story building. That wave hit the northern coast of Crete, where most of the Minoan harbors and trading cities were built. Here is what makes this case so disturbing. After the eruption, the Minoan civilization did not just decline. It collapsed in a way that scientists still cannot fully explain. Their writing system, called Linear A, has never been deciphered to this day. We do not know what they called themselves. We do not know what gods they worshipped. We do not even know what language they spoke. An entire civilization, gone, and the only voice they left behind is silent. Number 9. The Indus Valley Civion. Now we travel east, to the border between modern Pakistan and India. Around 4,000 years ago, the Indus Valley civilization was larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Their cities, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, held a population of over 5 million people. They had grid-patterned streets, public baths, standardized weights and measures used across thousands of kilometers. They were peaceful, organized, and sophisticated. And then, between 1900 and 1700 BC, they disappeared. For decades, the standard explanation was invasion, that nomadic tribes from the north had swept down and destroyed the cities. But modern archaeology has quietly demolished that theory. There are no mass graves at Indus Valley sites. There is no large-scale evidence of warfare. The cities were not burned. They were simply abandoned. So what happened? Recent satellite analysis has revealed something extraordinary. The Sarasvati River, a massive waterway that fed the heart of the civilization, dried up. Climate scientists believe a long-term shift in monsoon patterns slowly starved the region of rainfall. But the timing does not fit a slow decline. Something accelerated the collapse, and the speed of it has puzzled researchers for over a century. In Mohenjo-daro, archaeologists found bodies lying in the streets, in unnatural positions, as if they had been struck down where they stood. Some skeletons showed signs of unusually high radiation levels, finding so strange that mainstream science still has no accepted explanation for it. Most researchers dismiss it. A few will not even discuss it on the record. Whatever ended the Indus Valley, It left a city of over 40,000 people frozen in the middle of an ordinary day. Number 8. The Akkadian Emperor. 2334 BC. A king named Sargon united the city-states of Mesopotamia into the world's first known empire, the Akkadian Empire. For about 150 years, they ruled an area that stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean coast. They had armies. They had a writing system. They had centralized agriculture that could feed millions of people. And then, around 2200 BC, the entire empire collapsed in less than a single generation. This one is particularly important because in 1993, a team of researchers from Yale University drilling sediment cores from the floor of the Gulf of Oman found something that changed everything we thought we knew about climate and civilization. The sediment showed a sudden, catastrophic drought that hit the Middle East right at the time the Akkadian Empire fell. The rain simply stopped. For 300 years, 3 centuries. Now imagine that. You wake up one morning, and the rain that has fed your land for thousands of years just stops. Crops fail. Rivers shrink. Cities die of thirst. Entire populations migrate south, desperate, only to find that the land they fled to is also dying. The Akkadians did not lose a war. They lost the sky. And what scientists still cannot explain is why this drought began so suddenly, and why it lasted so long. Some researchers have suggested a volcanic event. Others point to a shift in the North Atlantic Oscillation. But the truth is, no one knows for certain. We have a body. We have a cause of death. But the murder weapon is still missing. Number 7. The Maya of the classic PER. Most people think the Maya civilization simply faded away. That is not what happened. Between roughly 800 and 900 AD, the great Maya cities of the southern lowlands, Tikal, Palenque, Calakmul, Kopandal collapsed within the span of about 100 years. The population in some regions dropped by more than 90%. Cities that had held tens of thousands of people were abandoned to the jungle. The Spanish did not arrive till 600 years later. So this was not a colonial collapse. This was something else. Modern stalagmite analysis from caves in the region has revealed a series of severe droughts during this exact period, droughts that may have lasted decades. But here is what makes the Maya collapse so chilling. They had survived droughts before. They had elaborate water storage systems. They had agricultural reserves. So why did this particular drought break them? The leading theory now is that the Maya themselves had unintentionally amplified the crisis. Decades of deforestation to support their massive cities had altered the local climate. When the natural drought arrived, the land could no longer recover. The cities turned on each other. Trade routes broke down. Royal lines ended without successors. In the ruins of Tikal, archaeologists have found unfinished monuments, half-carved stones. Tools dropped where their owners last used them. People left in the middle of building things that they would never return to complete. Whatever final blow ended the classic Maya. It came so fast that they never even had time to put their tools away. Number 6. The Iittis, the Hittite Empire ruled most of modern Turkey and parts of Syria for nearly 500 years. They were one of the great superpowers of the Bronze Age, equal in stature to ancient Egypt. They fought the Egyptians at the Battle of Kadesh, one of the largest chariot battles in human history. And then, around 1200 BC, their capital city of Hattusa burned to the ground. The empire collapsed. Their language, Hittite, is lost for over 3,000 years. Here is where it gets strange. The Hittite collapse was not isolated. It was part of an event that historians now call the Bronze Age collapse, and it remains one of the greatest mysteries in archaeology. Within a span of about 50 years, almost every major civilization in the eastern Mediterranean collapsed at the same time. The Mycenaean Greeks, the Egyptian New Kingdom, the Canaanite cities, the Assyrian Empire, all of them hit by something simultaneously. For decades, scholars blamed mysterious raiders called the Sea Peoples. But no one has ever conclusively identified who the Sea Peoples were. where they came from, or why they appeared all at once. Recent research suggests a perfect storm of disasters: earthquakes, drought, famine, mass migrations, and possibly even a pandemic. But the question that no one can answer is this: why did all of these crises hit the same region in the same 50-year window? Some researchers have begun to suspect that something happened to the Earth itself during this period: a climate shift, a solar event, possibly even a comet impact in the upper atmosphere. But none of these theories has been confirmed. What we do know is that when the dust settled, an entire age of human civilization was over. Number 5, the Anasazi of the American Southwest, in the canyons of New Mexico and Arizona. You can still walk into stone cities built into the cliffs themselves. Multi-story apartment complexes carved into mountainsides. Ceremonial centers. Astronomical observatories. These were the Anasazi, the ancestral Pueblones. For nearly 1,000 years, they thrived in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And then, around 1300 AD, they vanished. Not just from one site, from every site. Almost simultaneously, across thousands of square miles, the Anasazi packed up their cities and left. They walked away from homes their ancestors had built over generations. Some sites show signs of being sealed up, as if the inhabitants believed something was coming, and they wanted to make sure it could not follow them. Tree ring data shows a megadrought hit the region during the late 1200s. Yes, the drought was severe, but the Anasazi had survived droughts before. What they had not survived was something else. Something that even modern researchers describe carefully. There is evidence of violence, of cannibalism, of communities turning on each other in ways that defy what we know about Anasazi culture before this period. Something terrified them. Something so disturbing that they did not just leave their homes. They tried to erase all memory of them. The descendants of the Anasazi, modern Hopi, Zuni, and other Pueblo peoples still pass down oral traditions about what happened. Some of those stories speak of a darkness that came upon their ancestors, a spiritual sickness, a reason that, even today, certain canyons are considered places that should not be entered. Science can describe the drought. Science cannot explain the fear. Number 4, the Olmecs. Long before the Aztecs, long before the Maya in their classic form, there was a civilization in the steaming jungles of what is now southern Mexico called the Olmecs. They are often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica. They built the first pyramids in the Americas. They invented a system of writing. They sculpted enormous stone heads, some weighing over 40 tons, depicting people whose features still spark debate among archaeologists today. And then, around 400 BC, they were gone. Their main cities, La Venta, San Lorenzo, Tres Zapotes, show clear evidence of being deliberately and systematically destroyed. Their colossal heads were defaced. Their monuments were buried. Their temples were dismantled. But here's the strange part. There is no evidence of an outside invasion. No foreign weapons. No mass graves of warriors. It looks like the Olmecs destroyed themselves. One leading theory suggests massive volcanic eruptions in the nearby Sichuan. Its mountains may have buried farmland and triggered famine. Another suggests the rivers that fed their cities shifted course, a phenomenon known as river piracy, and slowly killed their agriculture. But neither of these theories explains why the Olmecs systematically destroyed their own art, their own monuments, and even their own ancestors' tombs before they left. Some researchers now whisper a different theory, that something happened. Something the Olmecs themselves blamed on their gods or their kings. Something so traumatic that they did not just abandon their cities. They tried to erase them from history, and they almost succeeded. Number 3, the Cucutini Trapelia culture. Most people have never heard this name, and that is exactly the point. Around 6,000 years ago, in the area between modern Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine, there existed a civilization that may have been the largest in the world at the time. The Cucutini Trapelia people built mega-settlements, proto-cities that held up to 46,000 inhabitants. This was 1,000 years before the first cities of Mesopotamia. They had advanced pottery, two-story houses, organized agriculture, possibly even a form of proto-writing. and then every 80 to 100 years. They did something that no one has ever fully explained. They burned their cities to the ground. Deliberately, archaeologists have found no signs of war, no invasion, no revolt. The fires were systematic, controlled, and complete. Then the population would move a short distance away, build a new megasettlement, and live there until it was time to burn that one too. Around 3000 BC, this cycle stopped. The Cucutini Tripelia people did not build another city. They simply vanished from the archaeological record. What changed? Why did they stop? And what was the original reason for the burnings? A religious cycle, a hygienic practice, or a response to something we still do not understand? The biggest mystery is what finally erased them. Climate data shows a cooling event during this period. Some researchers point to migrations from the steppes, but none of this explains why a civilization that had survived for over 2,000 years using the burn-and-rebuild method suddenly stopped and never returned. We are looking at the largest civilization on Earth at one point in history, and we cannot even tell you what they called themselves. Number 2, the Nabda Playa culture. In the southern desert of Egypt, hundreds of kilometers from the Nile, there is a place called Nabda Playa. Today, it is one of the driest, most desolate spots on the planet, but 10,000 years ago, it was a lake bed. And around its shores lived a culture that built something that should not exist. At Nabda Playa, archaeologists have discovered a stone circle aligned to the stars, possibly the oldest astronomical observatory ever found, predating Stonehenge by at least 2,000 years. The people who built it had detailed knowledge of solstices, of constellations, of the cycles of Sirius and Orion. Then, around 4800 BC, the climate of North Africa changed dramatically. The Sahara, which had been a lush savanna, dried up almost completely within a few hundred years. The Nabda Playa people vanished. But here's the unsettling part. The Sahara had been wet for thousands of years before this. And then, within a span of a few centuries, it became one of the most extreme deserts on Earth. Climate scientists call this the African humid period termination, and they still cannot fully explain why it happened so quickly. Some researchers believe that Nabda Playa people did not simply die out. They migrated east to the Nile Valley, and they brought their astronomical knowledge with them. The implication of that theory is enormous. It would mean that the foundations of ancient Egyptian civilization, pyramid alignments, star worship, calendar systems may have come from a much vanished culture that fled a dying landscape. If that is true, then everything you have been taught about the origin of Egyptian civilization is missing a chapter. A chapter written in stone, in the middle of a desert, by people whose names we will never know. Number 1. The lost civilization of Doggerland, 8,000 years ago. You could walk from England to the Netherlands without ever crossing water. Between them stretched a fertile lowland of forests, rivers, and grasslands, populated by tribes of hunter-gatherers, animals, and even mammoths in earlier eras. This place had a name in modern archaeology, Doggerland, today. It lies under more than 100 feet of cold, gray water at the bottom of the North Sea. For decades, fishermen pulling up their nets from the Dogger Bank had reported strange finds: bones, antlers, hand-carved tools, even pieces of wood that should not have survived underwater. In the early 2000s, sonar mapping confirmed the truth. There was an entire prehistoric landscape down there: riverbeds, hills, coastlines, and the people who lived there did not all die quietly. As the seas rose at the end of the Ice Age, around 6,200 BC, an underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, known today as the Storegga Slide, triggered a tsunami estimated at over 20 meters high. That wave swept across what was left of Doggerland and erased it from the surface of the earth. The people of Doggerland are believed to have been some of the most advanced hunter-gatherer societies of their time. They had complex tools, burial customs, trade networks that stretched across what is now Britain and continental Europe, and in a single afternoon, their entire world was drowned. We do not know what they believed. We do not know what they sang. We do not know what they built, because most of it is now buried under cold mud. It's miles offshore. But here's the part that should make you stop and think. Sea levels are rising again today. faster than at any point since the end of the Ice Age. The same forces that erased Doggerland are still active. Still moving? Still patient? The Earth has done this before. It will do it again. The only question is which of our cities will be the next Doggerland. 10 civilizations. 10 endings. And in every case, something the science of their time could not have predicted, and that the science of our time still cannot fully explain. Volcanic eruptions that rewrote climates. Droughts that lasted centuries. Tsunamis that erased nations in an afternoon. And somewhere in the gaps between all of these patterns, we are only just beginning to recognize. Because here's the truth that ties all of these stories together. None of these civilizations thought their world was ending. The Minoans did not see Santorini coming. The Akkadians did not know the rain would stop for 300 years. The people of Doggerland were sleeping when the wave came. They thought they had time. If this list disturbed you, then there is something you need to see next. I made a video about 10 lost cities that were found exactly where they were, never supposed to exist. And one of them might already be buried beneath your feet. Subscribe before you go, because next week I am revealing the underground cities ancient. People built to hide from something they never named. You will not want to miss what we found inside.